The text message came through at 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. I remember the exact time because I was in the middle of reviewing quarterly financials for the company that had consumed the last 8 years of my life, that I'd built from the ground up while everyone else took credit, that bore my family's name but ran on my blood, sweat, and sleepless nights. The message was from my mother. 3 simple sentences that would change everything. We've decided we're not going to help you anymore. You need to figure things out on your own. The family has spoken. I stared at those words on my phone screen for a full minute, sitting in my small apartment, the same modest 2-bedroom I'd been living in for 5 years while my brother lived in a McMansion and my sister drove a Tesla. The same apartment I came home to after 12-hour days at the office while they worked maybe 20 hours a week combined. Help me? Help me? My name is Sarah Mitchell. I'm 34 years old. And I just closed down my family's multi-million-dollar business. Not because it was failing. Not because of the economy. But because I was done being treated like the help instead of the person who built the entire operation. Let me back up and tell you how we got here. 8 years ago, I was 26 and working a decent job in marketing at a mid-sized firm in Seattle. I had my own life, my own trajectory, my own plans. And then my father had a heart attack. Not a fatal one, thank God, but serious enough that he had to step back from the family business, a small manufacturing company that made custom furniture. It was struggling. Had been struggling for years, really, barely breaking even, held together by my father's reputation and relationships but with no real business strategy. My mother called me in a panic. Sarah, we need you. The business is going to fail without your father. Your brother doesn't know anything about running a company, and your sister has her own career. You have business experience. You can save this. I should have said no. I should have seen the pattern that would unfold. But I loved my father. I loved my family. And they needed me. So I quit my job. Moved back to Portland where the business was located. And I dove in. What I found was worse than I'd imagined. No real accounting system. No inventory management. No marketing strategy. Customer relationships that existed entirely in my father's head with no documentation. Suppliers who hadn't been paid on time in months. Equipment that was outdated and constantly breaking down. It wasn't a business. It was a slow-motion disaster. But I'm good at what I do. Really good. I spent the first 6 months just putting out fires, renegotiating with suppliers, setting up proper accounting systems, documenting everything, creating actual processes. I worked 16-hour days. I learned manufacturing from the ground up. I rebuilt relationships my father's illness had strained. And slowly, painfully, the business stabilized. By year 2, we were actually profitable. Not hugely, but solidly in the black. By year 3, I'd expanded our client base, brought us into the digital age with an actual website and online ordering system, and doubled our revenue. By year 5, we'd moved into a bigger facility and I'd hired a real team. My father recovered. But he didn't come back to work. You're doing such a great job, Sarah. I don't want to mess up what you've built. Which sounds supportive until you realize it meant he was perfectly happy to collect profits while I did all the work. My brother David came on board in year 3. I use came on board loosely. He wanted a job title, VP of Operations, and a salary, but he didn't want to actually operate. He'd show up around 10, take 2-hour lunches, leave by 3. When I tried to assign him actual responsibilities, my mother would call. Don't be so hard on David. He's trying his best. Not everyone is as naturally gifted at business as you are. My sister Michelle never officially worked for the company, but she had opinions. Lots of opinions. About the logo, the website, the product line, the marketing. She'd drop by maybe once a month, spend an hour suggesting changes that would take me weeks to implement, then leave feeling like she'd contributed something valuable. And my mother. My mother was the official, office manager, which meant she came in 3 days a week to go through the mail, make coffee, and critique everything I was doing. Are you sure we need to spend money on that new equipment? Do you really think that marketing campaign is appropriate? Your father never did it that way. But here's what really happened behind the scenes, the part that makes what came next make sense. In year 2, when I was restructuring everything, I had to reincorporate the business properly. The original corporation my father had set up was a mess, liability issues, tax problems, the whole thing needed to be unwound and done right. I sat my parents down and explained what needed to happen. My father, still recovering and not really focused on business details, basically told me to handle it. You know what you're doing, Sarah. Whatever you think is best. My mother was there but barely paying attention, more worried about my father's health than business structures. So I did what needed to be done. I set up a new LLC with proper operating agreements, clear ownership structures, and most importantly, because I'd learned enough by then to protect myself, management provisions that gave the managing member significant control over business operations. I made myself the managing member. I owned 51% of the company. My parents owned 25% combined. David had 12%. Michelle had 12%. Everyone signed the operating agreement. I don't think any of them actually read it. They just saw that they had ownership percentages and would get profit distributions, and that was enough. For 6 years, this arrangement worked fine because I was doing all the work anyway. I made decisions, they collected checks, everyone was happy. Except I wasn't happy. I was exhausted. Burnt out. Resentful. Because here's what those 6 years actually looked like, I was working 60-hour weeks minimum. I hadn't taken a real vacation in 5 years. I was making $85,000 a year, decent, sure, but less than I'd been making at my previous job, and a fraction of what someone with my responsibilities should earn. Meanwhile, David was making $95,000 to essentially exist. My parents were taking distributions that amounted to about $150,000 a year combined. Michelle, who didn't even work there, got her 12% distributions, about $60,000 a year from a business she visited monthly. And the gratitude? Non-existent. Instead, I got constant criticism. The business wasn't growing fast enough. Why wasn't I marketing better? Why were expenses so high? Did I really need to hire that new person? 3 months ago, I snapped. Not dramatically, I didn't yell or quit or make a scene. I just stopped accepting it. It started when my mother criticized me for wasting money on new CNC equipment we desperately needed. Equipment that would improve our production capacity by 40%. I'd run all the numbers, presented a clear ROI analysis, explained exactly why this investment was crucial. I just think you're being irresponsible with the family's money, she said in front of 3 employees. It's not the family's money, I responded calmly. It's the company's money. And as managing member, this is my decision. She didn't like that. Called my father. My father called me, said I was being disrespectful to your mother. I explained the business rationale again. He said, well, your mother has a point. Maybe we should wait. I bought the equipment anyway. It was the right business decision, and according to our operating agreement, it was within my authority. That's when the family started having meetings. Without me. Planning sessions about the direction of the company that I'd hear about secondhand. My brother started making noises about wanting to be more involved in decision-making. My sister suggested they should hire an outside manager and I could just focus on the operations side. The disrespect that had always been there got louder. More blatant. At family dinners, they'd talk about the business like it was theirs, like they'd built it, like I was just the current employee managing things. The breaking point came 3 weeks ago. We landed our biggest contract ever. A major hotel chain wanted custom furniture for 15 new properties. It was a $3.2 million deal. The kind of contract that would change everything for us. I'd spent 4 months pitching this client, negotiating terms, developing custom designs. I'd flown to their headquarters 3 times on my own dime because the company couldn't afford the travel expense, according to my mother. I'd worked nights and weekends on the proposal. When it came through, I was ecstatic. I sent an email to the family telling them the news. And you know what response I got? From David, "Great. Does this mean my salary will finally increase?" From Michelle, "Wow, finally some good news. Make sure you don't screw up the delivery." From my mother, "That's nice, dear. Can you pick up dinner for Sunday? I'm too busy to cook." From my father, "Nothing at all. No congratulations. No acknowledgement of the work I'd done. No recognition that I'd just secured a deal that would make them all significantly richer." That night, I went home and I cried. Not sad tears. Angry tears. Frustrated tears. The tears of someone who's finally seeing clearly what she'd been refusing to see for years. I was not family to them. I was free labor. I was the person who made their comfortable lifestyle possible while they treated me like an incompetent employee they were doing a favor by keeping around. And I decided I was done. The next morning, I called a lawyer. A good one. I had him review our operating agreement, review every decision I'd made, every authority I had. I wanted to know exactly what my rights were. The answer surprised even me. As managing member with 51% ownership, I had extraordinary power. I could make virtually any business decision without their approval. I could hire, fire, set salaries, make purchases, enter contracts. The only things I couldn't do alone were dissolve the company, sell the company, or remove myself as managing member. But here's what I could do: I could close locations. I could restructure operations. I could lay off employees, including family members. I could change my own compensation. And as long as I was acting in what I believed to be the business's best interest, I was protected. I started planning. Quietly. Carefully. I documented everything, every criticism, every time I was undermined, every contribution I'd made, every hour I'd worked. I reviewed our finances, our contracts, our obligations. I talked to our key clients and suppliers, feeling out their relationships with the business. And then, 2 weeks ago, I made my move. I called a family meeting. Told everyone we needed to discuss the business's future. They all showed up, probably expecting me to ask for their input on the new contract or something. Instead, I told them I was restructuring my role and my compensation. Effective immediately, my salary was increasing to $200,000, still below market rate for someone running a multi-million-dollar operation, but at least closer to fair. I was also formally taking the title of CEO, which I'd functionally been holding for years anyway. The explosion was immediate. "You can't just give yourself a raise," my mother shrieked. "That's not fair to the rest of us." David protested. "This is a family business, Sarah. We make these decisions together," my father said, finally engaged now that money was involved. "Actually," I said calmly, "according to our operating agreement, which all of you signed, I can. As managing member, I have the authority to set executive compensation, including my own. I'm not asking for permission. I'm informing you of my decision." "This is ridiculous," Michelle said. "We need to vote on this." "There's no vote," I explained. "That's not how our structure works. You're welcome to review the operating agreement again." I had my lawyer review it. This is well within my authority. The meeting devolved into shouting. Accusations that I was being greedy, selfish, that I was betraying the family. My mother cried. David threatened to quit. Michelle said I was destroying everything our father built. That last one particularly galled me. "Dad didn't build this," I said quietly. "I did. Dad ran a struggling shop that was about to go under. I built a successful company from those ashes. And you've all been happy to cash the checks from my work while treating me like I'm lucky to be here." "That's not true," my father said, but he couldn't look me in the eye. "It is true," I said. But it's fine. I'm not asking for gratitude. I'm just taking what I've earned. I left the meeting. Went back to my office. Got back to work. The next few days were tense but manageable. They were angry, but ultimately they couldn't do anything. The business kept running. The new contract kept progressing. My higher salary started with the next payroll. And then I got the text message. Tuesday afternoon. 2:47 p.m. We've decided we're not going to help you anymore. You need to figure things out on your own. The family has spoken. I read it again. And then I laughed. Actually laughed out loud in my office. Help me? They thought they'd been helping me? I picked up my phone and called my lawyer. We're doing it, I said. Start the process. Are you sure? He asked. Once you do this, there's no going back. I'm sure, I said. I've never been more sure of anything. Before I tell you what happened next, I need you to do something for me. If this story is resonating with you, if you've ever been taken for granted by the people who should value you most, if you've ever done the work while others took the credit, hit that subscribe button right now. Leave a like if you want to know how this ends. And comment below, have you ever been the person holding everything together while being treated like you're the problem? Share your story. I read every comment. Now, let me tell you what I did next. Here's what most people don't understand about family businesses: they're built on relationships and trust, which sounds warm and fuzzy until those relationships break down. And when they do, the person who actually understands how the business works has all the power. I didn't close the business out of spite or revenge. I closed it because I looked at the situation clearly and realized something: I didn't need them. But they desperately needed me. The business wasn't Mitchell Family Furniture anymore. It was Sarah Mitchell with a deadweight family attached. So I restructured. Not the company, myself. I started a new company. Sarah Mitchell Design and Manufacturing, LLC. Just me. I transferred all of my client relationships, which were my relationships anyway. The big hotel contract. I called them, explained I was starting my own operation, and asked if they'd be willing to work with my new company instead. They agreed immediately. They'd been working with me, not with Mitchell Family Furniture. I reached out to our key suppliers. Same conversation. Most of them didn't even blink. They'd been dealing with me for years anyway. I poached our 3 best employees, the ones who actually did the work, who I'd trained, who were loyal to me, not to the company name. I offered them better pay, better conditions, and a chance to be part of building something new. They all said yes. I found a smaller facility. More efficient. Lower overhead. Set up the equipment we needed. Transferred the contracts that mattered. All of this took about 3 weeks of intense work, done quietly after hours and on weekends. My family had no idea. And then I went into the office on a Monday morning and I closed it down. I gathered the remaining employees, mostly people David had hired, friends of his who were underperforming and overpaid, and told them the business was ceasing operations effective immediately. They'd get their final paychecks plus 2 weeks severance. I was humane about it, even though the business didn't owe them anything. Then I called my family. The business is closed, I told my mother. Mitchell Family Furniture no longer exists as an operating company. What are you talking about? She said. You can't just close the business. Actually, I can, I said. As managing member, I have the authority to cease operations if I determine it's in the company's best interest. And given that the family is no longer helping me, it seemed like the right business decision. But the contracts. The clients. The equipment. The valuable contracts have been transferred to my new company, which the clients agreed to. The equipment is leased, and I've terminated the leases or transferred them as appropriate. The facility lease is month to month, and I've given notice. Everything has been done legally and properly. You can't do this to us, she shrieked. I already did, I said calmly. You told me to figure things out on my own. So I did. My father called within 5 minutes. He was more measured but equally panicked. Sarah, what's going on? Your mother says you've closed the business. That's correct. But that's our income. That's our retirement. You can't just. I didn't just do anything, Dad, I interrupted. I spent 8 years building that business from nothing. 8 years of 60-hour weeks while David worked 25 hours if we were lucky, and Michelle gave advice she never had to implement. 8 years of criticism and disrespect and being treated like an employee rather than the person who made everything possible. We appreciate what you've done. No, you don't, I said. If you appreciated it, you wouldn't have sent that text message. We're not going to help you anymore. You weren't helping me, Dad. I was helping you. I was the entire operation. And you all seem to have forgotten that. So this is revenge? You're destroying the family business for revenge? I'm not destroying anything, I said. I'm restructuring my professional life. The business you're thinking of, the profitable, successful one, that was me. I took that with me. What I left behind was the dead weight. David called next. Angry, threatening legal action. I told him to have his lawyer call my lawyer and hung up. Michelle called crying, talking about family loyalty and how could I do this to them. I reminded her that she'd been collecting $60,000 a year from a business she visited monthly and hung up. The next few weeks were chaos. They did consult lawyers. Multiple lawyers. All of whom told them the same thing my lawyer had told me, I'd acted within my legal rights. The operating agreement they'd all signed gave me the authority to make these decisions. They could potentially sue, but they'd have to prove I'd acted against the business's interests, and given that I'd transferred valuable contracts and key employees to a new, more efficient operation, that would be nearly impossible to prove. They threatened to sue anyway. I told them to go ahead, and that I'd countersue for years of unpaid overtime and below-market compensation. They backed down. What they couldn't back down from was the financial reality. Without the business operating, their income disappeared. My father's retirement plan had been the business profits. My mother had no other income. David, who hadn't developed any real skills in his cushy VP role, couldn't find another job paying anywhere near what he'd been making. Michelle was fine, she had her own career, but she lost her easy supplemental income. Meanwhile, my new business thrived. Without the overhead of family members who didn't contribute, without the constant criticism and second-guessing, without having to justify every decision to people who didn't understand the industry, I was free to just run the company the way it should be run. Revenue in the first 6 months exceeded my projections. The hotel contract went perfectly. My 3 employees were happier and more productive. I was working hard, sure, but it felt different. It felt like I was building something for myself, not for people who would never value it. 2 months after I closed Mitchell Family Furniture, my father called. Not angry this time. Defeated. Sarah, he said, I think we need to talk. We met at a coffee shop. Neutral territory. He looked older than I'd ever seen him. Tired. Worried. I'm sorry, he said. Your mother and I, we took you for granted. We treated you like an employee when you were the one holding everything together. You were right about all of it. Thank you for saying that, I said. But it doesn't change anything. I know, he said. I'm not asking you to give us back the business or give us jobs or anything like that. I'm apologizing. As your father. I failed you. And there it was. The acknowledgement I'd wanted for 8 years. It should have felt vindicating. Instead, it just felt sad. You did fail me, I said. But not just as a father. As a business partner. You took advantage of the fact that I loved you and wanted to help. You all did. What can I do to make this right? He asked. Nothing, I said honestly. This is where we are now. You'll have to figure out retirement differently. David will have to develop actual job skills. Mom will have to adjust. And I'll keep building my business. Can we try to be family again? Outside of business? I thought about that. Did I want a relationship with people who'd treated me so poorly? Who'd shown me so clearly what they thought of me? Maybe, I said finally. But it needs to be different. I'm not the family workhorse anymore. I'm not the problem solver you call when you need something. If we're going to have a relationship, it has to be because you actually value me as a person, not because I'm useful. He nodded. I understand. And Sarah? I am proud of you. What you've built, what you've accomplished. I should have said that years ago. Yes, I said. You should have. That conversation happened 3 months ago. Since then, I've seen my parents occasionally. Dinners, holidays. It's still awkward, still strained, but maybe getting better. Maybe. David I haven't spoken to. He's angry and likely will be for a long time. He had to take a job making a third of what he was making at the family business, and he blames me for his ego being bruised. Michelle and I text occasionally. She apologized, which I appreciated. She admitted she'd treated the business distributions like free money and never thought about where they came from. My mother sent me a long letter. More explanations than apologies, but there was some acknowledgement of fault. She can't quite bring herself to admit how badly they treated me, but she's trying. And me? I'm thriving. My business just crossed $5 million in annual revenue. I hired 2 more employees. I took my first real vacation in 6 years, 2 weeks in Italy with my girlfriend Emma, who I met about 4 months after starting the new business and who thinks my family is completely insane. I bought a house. A real house. With a yard and space and room for the life I'm building. I'm making more money than I ever did at the family business. I have control over my time, my decisions, my future. And I sleep well at night knowing that I don't owe anyone anything. Here's what I learned from all of this: family doesn't give you the right to exploit someone's love and loyalty. Working hard doesn't obligate you to accept disrespect. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is walk away from people who refuse to see your value. That text message, "We're not going to help you anymore," was supposed to hurt me. It was supposed to make me realize how much I needed them, make me fall in line, remind me of my place in the family hierarchy. Instead, it freed me. Because it made me realize that I'd never needed their help. They'd needed mine. And once I understood that, truly understood it, everything else became clear. I'm 34 years old. I own a successful manufacturing company. I'm financially stable. I'm in a healthy relationship. I have a future I'm excited about. And I got here by refusing to let people who didn't value me control my narrative about my own worth. Before I finish this story, I want you to do one more thing for me. If you made it this far, if this story meant something to you, if you've ever been the person everyone depended on but nobody appreciated, subscribe to this channel. Leave a like. And most importantly, comment below. Tell me, have you ever had to walk away from family for your own well-being? What gave you the strength to do it? What would you tell someone who's in the situation I was in? Your stories matter. Share them. Now let me finish. The most common question I get when I tell people this story is, do you regret it? And the answer is no. Not even a little bit. Do I wish my family had valued me before it came to this? Of course. Do I wish I could have a simple, uncomplicated relationship with my parents and siblings? Sure. Do I sometimes feel sad about how it all went down? Yes. But regret? No. Because regret implies I made the wrong choice. And I didn't. I made the only choice that honored my worth, my work, my contribution. I made the choice to stop accepting crumbs from a table I'd built myself. I made the choice to bet on myself instead of waiting for people who'd shown me, repeatedly, that they would never properly value me. And that choice changed my life. If you're watching this and you're in a similar situation, if you're the person holding everything together while everyone else takes credit, if you're being exploited by people who claim they're doing it out of love, if you're exhausted from giving and never receiving recognition or respect, hear this. You don't owe people access to your labor just because you share DNA. You don't have to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. You don't have to accept being undervalued just to keep the peace. It's scary to walk away. It's scary to bet on yourself. It's scary to disappoint people who've made it clear you'll disappoint them no matter what you do. But staying is scarier. Staying means accepting that this is all you deserve. That this is all you're worth. That your value is only in what you provide to others, never in who you are. And that's not true. It was never true. My name is Sarah Mitchell. I'm 34 years old. I closed my family's business because they forgot I was the reason it existed. I built a new company on my own terms. And I've never been happier, more successful, or more at peace. That text message, "We're not going to help you anymore," was supposed to be a threat. Instead, it was a gift. It showed me exactly what I needed to see, that I'd been carrying people who thought they were carrying me. And once I put them down, I could finally fly. Thank you for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, please subscribe to this channel, leave a like, and share your own story in the comments. Let's build a community of people who understand that self-worth isn't selfish, it's survival. People who know that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to be treated badly, even by family. Especially by family. And remember, you are not the help. You are not the backup plan. You are not lucky to be included in something you built. You are the foundation. And foundations don't beg for recognition. They simply decide what they will and won't support. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And if this helped you in any way, please let me know in the comments. You're not alone. And you're worth so much more than they've made you believe.